All right, we're going to be in the book of Isaiah this evening, Isaiah chapter 40, and our main text will be from verse 31. We'll have a few other verses, of course, along the way that we'll look at, but Isaiah chapter 40, verse 31, I'm calling this, Godliness Comes to Those Who Wait. Along the way, while speaking about a number of different things, whether it was trials or having peace or trusting the Lord, the concept of having to wait on Him has come up quite a bit. And each time it comes up, the Lord brings it up. I mentioned the fact, of course, that none of us need to be reminded of, and that's that we hate waiting. I can tell that I'm not the only one who hates waiting. We don't like waiting for anything. And we live in a day where nobody wants to wait. We have instant services, or as instant as they can be. We microwave our meals. We fast forward our shows. We order online because we don't want to stand in line. And I'm not condemning those things because we take advantage of them just as much as anybody, I'm sure. The Bible tells us that the Christian life requires waiting. Not necessarily waiting on circumstances, not waiting on people, not waiting, thank the Lord, on Washington, D.C. The Bible, because that would take a long time. Nothing is happening up there, nothing good at least. But the Bible tells us that we need to wait on the Lord. And if we're honest, we must be, waiting is not easy. It's an understatement. Waiting stinks sometimes. We don't want to wait. We want what we want now, the way we want it. But God tells us that even something like waiting can be redeemed. Waiting is not wasted time when we're waiting on the Lord. Waiting is working on God's timing, trusting His timing, trusting Him to give us strength, to shape us, to prepare us. Isaiah 40, you're there by now, verse 31. I'm actually going to go up just to lead into this to verse 28. Hast thou not known, hast thou not heard, that the everlasting God, the Lord, the Creator of the ends of the earth, fainteth not, neither is weary? There is no searching of His understanding. In other words, there's no end to it, no limit to His understanding. He understands everything, and I'm so thankful that He doesn't get weary. I know that I would probably exhaust Him if He was a God who could be wearied. He can't be. He doesn't faint. He giveth power to the faint, and to them that have no might He increaseth strength. Even the youths shall faint and be weary, and the young men shall utterly fall. But they that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings as eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall, they shall walk and not faint. Was this the verse, John, that you were going to put on the back of the or was there another verse about running and not being tired or something? Okay. So about running a race with patience and all of that. So I guess you could claim this verse if you're going to do the 5K, you run and not be weary, just as long as you're trusting the Lord for that strength. Maybe that'll work. I don't know. I'm so thankful, folks, that we have a God who does not get tired of us. We get tired of us. Other people get tired of us. God never does. I can imagine there are doctors who hear from specific patients a lot more than they do from others. And there could be maybe a point with those doctors where they say, oh, it's this person again. They're back. What's aching now? Or what do they think is wrong now? And they might get tired of those patients who are hypochondriacs and they're always calling. You might have a situation as parents, we can be tempted in this. You have children who are needy at certain times, and so there's a constant, Mommy, I need this. Daddy, I need that. Mommy, I'm not feeling well. Daddy, can you help me? And we can get to a point as parents where we've had a long day, and you might get exasperated and just be like, can you please give me like 5 minutes to breathe, to just think about nothing for a minute? I don't know if that's possible. For some of us, we can spend a lot of time thinking about nothing, and others have a very hard time turning their minds off. But God is not a God who says, would He just stop asking me for help for that? Would she please just do this on her own so that I can help somebody else? He's a God who has infinite strength. He's a God who doesn't faint, who doesn't grow weary. And he has a point. He doesn't tell us to wait just because he's got other things to do. We get put on waiting lists. We're familiar with waiting lists. You want a certain care, or you want a certain product, and you might have to wait a certain time for it. I know with camp in the summertime, certain weeks fill up very quickly at the Wilds, and so people get put on a waiting list, and you only can make it to camp if other people ahead of you decide, I can't go to camp, and so they come off the list, and you can get put on the list. God doesn't tell us you just need to wait because I've got other people that need me more than you do, and I'm going to put your need on a grading scale, and you're way down here. Their need is way up here. They're like a 10 out of 10, and you're like a 2. So I'll get to your little measly problem in a few minutes. Let me help the people who really need me. To pick on John again, he mentioned that as far as God is concerned, nothing is too big or too small. He's going to be there. He's going to be faithful. And he tells us that good things, that specifically godliness in this case, will come for those who wait on him. So as we consider a topic that is very difficult for us to do practically, we understand our need to do it because ultimately God is good and he is in control. And so from his word this evening, we'll consider 3 crucial truths. We'll look at the patience in waiting, the power in waiting, and the promise in waiting. So first, we'll see the patience in waiting. There is a need for us to surrender our will. We don't like to do that. We like to be in control. We like to call the shots. We like to know what's happening from A to Z. We like to know the beginning to the end. Kids, of course, on the way to a destination want to know, are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? And as parents, that could be another one of those exasperation moments where, like, you just asked me this 11 seconds ago. Will you please just be quiet and let me drive? We'll get there when we get there. And so that frustrates us as parents. And yet, how often do those of us who get tired of hearing it in our kids do the same thing to God when it comes to waiting on him and trusting him in a difficulty? God, are we there yet? Am I done with this? Can I just get through with this and get on with life? And we need to surrender our will to him. Before we can understand the blessing of waiting, we must understand the patience that waiting requires. Do you consider yourself a patient person? Maybe, but do other people consider you a patient person? Patience is required with waiting. And to wait on the Lord means that we must stop pushing our agenda and start trusting his agenda. You come to God, I know this, I've done it too, and you have a suggestion list. And God, if you really know what you're doing, this is how it needs to happen, this is when it needs to happen, this is who needs to do what, this is, and you line it all up so that God doesn't miss a beat. Like maybe a wife sending her husband to the store. You need to go to this aisle and get this product, this aisle and get this product, and here's line by line. This is what you need to do. Not that my wife has ever done that. This is hypothetical, of course, speaking for a friend. But we don't need to do that with God. We don't need to go to God and say, hey, I know you got a lot going on. There's wars, there's wicked people doing all this stuff. So my little thing, here's just my wish list. Here's what I need. And I've already thought it through, God, and I've got a really, really good plan. This is what you need to do. I don't know what God says to that necessarily. I can imagine saying, okay, that's nice. Here's what's actually going to happen. And we trust him. It's not easy. It requires humility. It requires surrender. Acknowledging that his way is actually better than ours. Look at Psalm 27, will you please? Psalm 27, hold your place in Isaiah. We'll be back. But Psalm 27, verse 14. Wait on the Lord. Be of good courage, and he shall strengthen thine heart. Wait, I say, on the Lord. A double mention of that because we really have a hard time waiting on the Lord. I don't know if you have ever tried this, but I'm just going to give you a news flash here. You can't rush God. You can't rush God. It doesn't work. God will do what needs to be done exactly when it needs to be done in the best way possible. Abraham tried to rush God with Hagar, and the world has suffered from that impatience ever since. Waiting means saying, Lord, not my will, but thine be done. That needs to be our genuine heart. Not just a phrase that we spit out because we know we're supposed to, but a genuine God, this is my desire. Even Jesus, when he was in the garden, in expressing his humanity and the grief, the weight that he was feeling, asked God, if it's possible, let this cup pass from me. If there's any other way that people can come to you, if there's any other way that people can be reconciled, let that happen, but not my will, but thine be done. Jesus Christ submitted and said, God, Father, I know that this is best, and so I will follow you. There is no other way. I know this is the way, and so I will follow you no matter what. We need to have that same genuine heart and have our will surrendered to God. We need to have a submission of our walk, how we live and what we do. Waiting is not sitting with our hands folded, doing nothing while we wait for God to do something. Waiting is walking in obedience while trusting God's timing. You were in the Psalms. Look back at Psalm 37 and verse 34. Psalm 37 and verse 34. Wait on the Lord and keep his way. He shall exalt thee to inherit the land. When the wicked are cut off, thou shalt see it. Waiting on the Lord doesn't mean that we are completely inactive. We just say, all right, God, I'm not going to do anything. I'm going to wait for you to do everything. God still uses us to accomplish things. But notice what the psalmist said. Wait on the Lord and keep his way. In other words, while you're waiting on the Lord, while you're trusting him and waiting for his timing, keep obeying, keep doing what is right, keep serving God the way that you know how. There may be a step that you're waiting for some wisdom, some direction. What do I do next? Career move, physical location move. What do I do here? What do I do there? And while you're waiting for God to give you wisdom, don't just set out the fleece and do nothing. Pray, yield the circumstances to God, and keep obeying the best way that you can in the context in which you are. Keep serving, keep praying, keep giving, keep witnessing. Waiting on the Lord doesn't mean that we do nothing. It means that we do the right thing until God brings the next thing. Like a soldier waiting on orders from his commander, he's not idle. He's attentive. He's ready. He's alert. He keeps paying attention. He's vigilant. He's not just going, well, I'm going to wait for the general to tell me what to do. Should I keep firing? Should I not? No, he's going to keep doing what he needs to do until he gets further instructions. We need to be willing to submit our lives and everything that we are to God. And I know how hard that is. I know how hard that is. I have to do it on a regular basis. But God expects this of us, and when he says that he expects something of us, he gives us the grace. He gives us the strength to do what he has told us to do, even if it means waiting. So we can trust him. We must. So we've looked at the patience in waiting. Let's consider the power in waiting. Back in Isaiah 40, verse 31, but they that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. We see the replenishing of our strength. Isaiah says, they that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. Waiting gives us power. The word there for renew has the idea of exchanging or replenishing there. When we wait on the Lord, you, in that waiting, are exchanging your weakness for his strength. Wouldn't you rather have his strength than your weakness? Why do we, and I'm as exasperated about myself as I am anybody else, why do we insist on continually trusting what we have seen to be weakness in ourselves when God has all the strength anywhere? Why don't we just go to him first and trust his strength the first time? Why do we insist on learning the hard way? How many of you learn the hard way, like me? Okay. My mom told me a great many things, and that was one of them, that I had a gift. I don't consider it necessarily a gift, but that I had a gift for learning the hard way. That's life, isn't it? In many cases, we have to do it ourselves, and we have to try, and fail, and then we realize, I should have gone to God in the first place and just trusted him. In 2 Corinthians 12, we know that, but in that verse, the Bible reminds us where Jesus said, my strength is made perfect in weakness. My strength is made perfect in weakness. You don't need more of your strength, you need more of his. You don't need more of your efforts, you need his efforts, his strength, his grace, which he told Paul was sufficient. Our batteries run out all the time. God's power never runs out. When you wait, Essentially, you're plugging into heaven's power source. You're trusting, you're relying upon strength that is not yours to get done what needs to be done. Just to put this into perspective, it doesn't matter how many people are trusting in God at any given moment. He never runs out of strength for everybody. He always has enough strength and enough grace for everybody to get through or to endure what they're going through. He always has enough grace, always has sufficient strength for every single need. Do you believe that? That you have needs. I know you have needs. Some of you have shared those needs with me and with others. I know that there are needs. I have needs. Every human has needs, and we could all have those needs at the same time, all take those needs to God and lay them at His feet because He cares for us, and He has enough strength and He has enough grace to help us all simultaneously because He's an infinite God. And as we wait in Him, not busy ourselves with trying to make it happen, because you found it to be true, I found it to be true. When I'm so busy trying to make my plan work, it is exhausting. Physically, spiritually, in every lee possible, it is exhausting. And we wear ourselves down and we faint. If we would just trust the God who cannot faint, trust the God who cannot grow weary, then we would renew our strength because we're trusting in His. This provides also for the rising of our spirit. Isaiah says, "They shall mount up with wings as eagles." Now that's not just survival, that's soaring. You think of eagles, of course, the bald eagle, our nation's bird. Beautiful, majestic animals. Eagles don't flap their wings constantly. They ride the drafts, they glide quite a bit, and when they do use their wings, they're powerful. They're strong birds. They're majestic. We don't have to live, to go with the bird analogy, we don't have to live flapping in our own energy. We can soar in God's power, soar on eagle's wings because of His strength. Waiting lifts your spirit above your circumstances. Others may be crawling. We can be climbing. We can be mounting up because of God's strength. David didn't defeat Goliath in his own strength. He waited on God in the fields, watching sheep. And in that waiting, God was preparing him for what ultimately he would go and do, allow him to soar to victory. There's power in waiting on the Lord. Let's look at the promise of waiting. The promise in waiting. First of all, we see the perseverance in the race. They shall run and not be weary. I have never been able to achieve that. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint. I can walk for a while and not get too tired, but they shall run and not be weary. This is something that only comes through God. The passage closes with a wonderful promise. Waiting is not wasted, it's rewarded. Life is a sprint, is not a sprint, rather, it's a marathon. John gave a very wonderful illustration, and I probably had heard the folklore behind marathon and all of that, but not maybe to the degree that he shared it. I love history, and I love battle plans, and I love all of that stuff, so I was locked in with what you were talking about there at the beginning of Sunday school. It was good. All of it was good. But think of a marathon, as John mentioned. If you're not familiar, a marathon is 26.2 miles, and if you're going to run that entire distance, you don't just run as fast as you can. That'll get you about 100 yards, and then you'll pass out. You'll be done. You'll waste all your strength. A marathon, I've never run one, but I know people who have, and so I'm speaking from their experience. A marathon, you have to pace yourself. You've got to have enough strength to get through all 26 miles. You go too fast, you're going to waste all your strength, and you're not going to make it. Waiting on God gives us perseverance. It strengthens us and enables us to wait more. It enables us to keep going and not to faint, because we're not trusting in our own strength, we're trusting in His. If it were us, if it were left up to us and our strength, we would faint, we would pass out, there'd be nothing left. And we face that regularly when we insist on trusting in our strength, don't we? That's why we struggle so much, because we're trusting ourselves. Look at Galatians chapter 6 and verse 9. And let us not be weary in well-doing, for in due season we shall reap if we faint not. Sometimes even in doing ministry and doing great things that can get tiring, and a lot of that just comes from the nature of serving the Lord and serving people, but it's possible to continue serving the Lord and serving others, loving others, and not fainting and being unuseful when we trust in God, when we trust in His strength. He gives us the ability to persevere. He gives us the encouragement. I've shared a story of a man who was running a marathon, and he got near the end, and he could see that finish line, but he was out of gas, and he couldn't do it. And so he was slowing down, and he was really considering stopping. I mean, and he had made it almost the entire distance. He probably had gone 26 miles. He just needed that 0.2 to make it, but he didn't think he could do it. And then one of the race assistants saw that he was struggling, and they knew that there is strength in numbers and there could be encouragement with somebody. So they came alongside him, and they started jogging and affirming him. You can do it. You can make it. Let's keep going. Let's keep going. Another step. We can do it. Well, he got a little bit further on, and his daughter, who was watching, saw him, and she ran up and grabbed his hand and said, "Daddy, let's go. Let's run." And that's all that he needed. You know, he tapped into that encouragement, and that gave him the energy to persevere. God can do something greater than either of those two people. They couldn't share their strength with him. God does share His strength with us. He does give us His strength. He alone allows us to persevere. Folks, the Christian life is hard. Jesus told us that it would be. It's not designed to be easy. We'll have our reward in heaven, but right now it's difficult. And if we're going to succeed, if we are going to continue walking and not fainting, or running and not being weary, it will only happen if we trust Him to give us the perseverance that we need. It will only happen with Him. That's the only way it's possible. This church has only been here for 50 years because God allowed it to be. God made it possible. Not because there were great men who led this place. They were men, they were tools of God. And I know all three of my predecessors, and I happen to think very highly of them. But it wasn't because of them that this church is here 50 years later. It's because of God. It's because of His strength. If you're going to have any kind of a victory in your life, if you're going to have any kind of perseverance and endure difficulties as long or short as they may be, it will happen when you wait on the Lord. Not when you trust in your own wisdom, not when you trust in your own strength, not even when you trust in the strength of others. And He has given us encouragement from other people, but ultimately they cannot provide for us what only God can. And that's that enduring, persevering strength that we need to keep going for Him. So that's the perseverance in the race, and we'll see now the persistence in the routine. There we go. He says, they shall walk and not faint. Running allows you to cover more distance faster, but most of us can't sustain a run indefinitely. Most of life is just that daily grind. It's that walking day in and day out faithfulness. It's a steady march in a hopefully Godward direction. And even that, you may not feel that you're going very fast. You may not feel like you're going as far or as strong as other people. God tells us don't compare ourselves with others. That's foolish. But even in the day-to-day, just trying to take that next step. And God's Word says in Psalm 119, 105, Thy Word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path. We see what we need for that next step. And sometimes that next step can take all the energy that we have because we are just worn down. Our enemy, the devil, is fighting hard. And he's using all kinds of tools, physical discouragement, diseases, sin, all kinds of things, things from other people discouraging us. He uses all kinds of things to try to slow us down and to just ruin us and to keep us out of the race. And so sometimes taking that next step is just all that you can do. But even in that, when you are waiting on the Lord, that next step is possible because of Him. And it may be the only step that you take that day. But you've taken that step. And you did it because you waited on the Lord and got strength from Him. It gives us the strength that we need to be steady even when the next step seems agonizing and impossible. Because with God, nothing is impossible. Folks, waiting on the Lord is never a waste of time. God is working while we're waiting. And when we wait on the Lord, we won't regret it. Maybe today you're waiting. You're waiting on a prayer to be answered. You're waiting for a burden to be lifted. You're waiting for God to show you the next step. Don't quit. Don't panic. Don't take matters into your own hands. They're much better in God's. Wait on the Lord. Let's bring this down to where we live here. Waiting on the Lord is not just a nice verse that you embroider on a pillow or put on a wall in a frame. It's a daily choice that we must make. Maybe you're waiting on a wayward child to come back to God. Don't give up. Keep praying and keep waiting on the Lord. Keep loving. Maybe you're waiting on a doctor's report or healing from a sickness. God's delays are not always God's denials. We need to trust His timing. Maybe you're waiting for relief from a heavy burden of grief or loneliness. While you wait, God is carrying you. He is strengthening you and teaching you to lean on Him. Every day you wait on the Lord is a day that God is building your faith, shaping your heart, and renewing your strength. So instead of asking, Lord, why am I waiting? Why is this taking so long? Are we there yet? We should start asking, Lord, what are you teaching me while I wait? What do I need to learn about you from this waiting period? What can I learn from you from this waiting period? How close can I get to you while I wait? Find renewed strength in the Lord tonight, friends. Trust in Him with all your heart. Lean on His understanding, not yours. Trust in Him, not yourself, to guide your ways and to direct your paths. Be strong in the Lord and in the power of His might. Let's close in prayer. Father, thank you for strength that we don't have. Thank you for helping us take steps that otherwise would be impossible for us to take because we are weak. Thank you for the assurance that you are the one who is directing our paths. There are many who are walking difficult paths that have no sign of easing up in this life. And yet, even with those situations, those circumstances, you are still good. You are trustworthy. You are the one who is directing that path. Lord, so often we get impatient with you. We want the quick lesson, the condensed version, the moral of the story right now. And in many cases, you've got waiting that we need to do for our good, for your glory. And in those times, we may be tempted to say, God, are you there? Are you still there? Help us to remember that you are. That there will never be a point where you're too busy with somebody else so you don't have time for us. Where your strength is being allocated in a certain direction and you don't have enough to get us through today. Maybe there will be some tomorrow, but there is always strength. You are infinite. You are always able to focus equally on our difficulties as you are everybody else's because you are infinite. You are always faithful because you cannot deny yourself. You are infinite. You are there. You are good. There may be some here struggling to accept that, struggling to believe it. They know it to be factually true, but those facts are disconnected from the heart at the moment, disconnected from experience. Help us to not just know that you're good, but to believe it, to trust on that, to lean into that. Because all that you do is only ever good as you understand it, as you define it. Help us to trust you. Help us in our waiting to receive supernatural strength to keep going. Because with each step, you are there. And I thank you for that. Thank you for being the one who can meet our needs. I pray that you will use your Spirit, use your word to minister to us now and as we go into this week. In Jesus' name, amen.